Thanks for tuning in again, everybody. We're back with your favorite podcast, Luka's Tigers and Bronze. Oh my.
So Luka Nation, today we have someone who, you've all been hearing about, but you may not know his name. I think after today's episode, you will. He's the CEO of Hybrid Grading, and that's the company that's just taken this hobby by storm the last 2 weeks. From the way I understand it, they use a combination of AI, artificial intelligence, with human grading. So one, they get your orders done on time, which is a huge value add right now. And in theory, and I'm here to find out for you guys, for our Luka Nation fans, if it's objectively going to be better grading. So without further ado, I want to introduce you guys to Tyler Colhitt. He's the CEO of Hybrid Grading, and I'm really, really excited to have you on today, Tyler.
Hey, thank you.
So tell us, how did this all start?
I'm a card collector first and foremost. Started, I've collected ever since I was a kid, on and off. Really got back into it over about a year and a half ago, real heavy. I was spending anywhere between $10,000 and $40,000 a week buying cards, getting into breaks, and started subbing cards again. And they come back, and my buddies that were already been into the business a while, they started being like, hey, let's just recrack these PSA 9s. They look like they'll get 10s. We'd crack them, send them back in. They come back as 10s. And I'm like, wait a second. And then hit COVID. When COVID hit, all the timelines started getting longer and longer and longer. And they were still called a 2-day. And then it became 5 days. And the 10 days are a month. And now 10 days at BGS, I think, is over 150 days. And it just gets frustrating when you try to get cards graded and you need quick turnarounds to make profits on these cards for investors. Or if you just want it on your PC and you got to wait half a year, or if you do a 30-day and it comes back in 270 plus days. I mean, it just gets old. And so my goal was to, one, fix the actual timelines. So we limited our submissions each week. We'll continue to grow with our companies and our submissions. So once if we fill a week, then we will continue to expand week after week to where we can try to accommodate everybody. But we guarantee our timelines. If I don't hit your timeline, then I'll refund you and still slab it for free. That's on me as an owner. I want to make sure that I'm 100% providing the best service possible. I'm literally beating down Facebook every day just trying to answer everybody's messages. But the other thing was I didn't like the colors of the labels. I'm like, it's just boring. I mean, they look like, they've been the same color and combination, red and white at PSA forever, BGS or slab. I mean, they're very boring, monotonous. Don't really add anything to the card. Don't really help it stand out. Don't complement it. A lot of times it clashes with it. If you have for example, we have a blue Chumakiki right here.
Mm-hmm.
Chumakiki, put that with a red and white slab, it just doesn't look as good. And so we, try to go about getting all of that fixed. When it comes to the actual grading,
I just want to touch on something really, really huge that I think is a value add.
Uh-huh.
And Cage, I don't know if you picked this up. Hybrid limits the amount of submissions they take in every week, right?
So there's a whole bunch to unwrap there. That is a huge. We want to do a whole couple minutes on there, but let's start off with this. I mean, I'm gonna go, whoa! I'm gonna pull back the reins a little bit. I've never done that because I'm Mr. Tangent and I go crazy. But Tyler just went in like 11 different directions with that. So we're gonna pump the brakes on you, and we're gonna ask what's just for our audience. We got thousands of people who listen, and they're all gonna be thrilled. Because I got to tell you, everybody's sitting in their basement saying, I hate the grading companies, the waits, the delays, the promises that don't get fulfilled. And everybody who has cards says, I should just start my own grading company.
Right.
So one, before we get into that, tell everybody who's listening now, what's the name of your company and where they can find you? I mean, I know we talked about how your social media presence is kind of growing, but let's just start there because people are going to listen to this and say, whoa, this sounds great. I mean, this guy just dumped 9,000 great things on me, but who is he? So tell me, what's the name of the company? Where's the, are you on Facebook, Twitter? Where can they find you? And then we're going to talk about, after you do that, what I want to hear from you is that moment where you said, you know what, we have to have an alternative, right? It's not the Republicans and the Democrats are failing us. We need Ross Perot has to get into this race. We need a third party. We need a green candidate. We need a hybrid. Right, and I want to hear how that materialized. Right, so tell them where they can find me, and then let's hear the start.
All right, name of the company is Hybrid Grading Approach, and you can find us at www.hybridgrading.com. We're on Facebook. We have a Facebook page. We have an Instagram page. We'll be setting up Twitter tomorrow. And we have it. I think that's right. We have Facebook, Instagram, and then we'll have Twitter.
Nice. All right. So, I mean, we're growing and we're hybrid grading, guys. You can find them hybrid grading. They have a webpage. I checked it out myself. It's pretty awesome. So tell me, you and your friends, you're having some drinks, you're drinking, I don't know, Screwball, peanut butter whiskey, whatever it may be that day. And you're like, hey, I don't like PSA. Let's just start our own thing. Give me that story.
Okay. A lot of my buddies were all big card collectors. And after, we sat there and resub cards and you're getting it and just, not accurate grades. I was like, I was like, why does none of them use machines? Why is there no machines brought into it? I was like, in a technological world that we're in, why is there no machines that actually can grade the cards? I was like, I've got money, I can do it. I make pretty good living from what I own other businesses as well. So I was like, I think I could privately fund this, and get it going. So I reached out to my development team and I was just seeing how possible it was. So we got on with some of our image processor developers. And they said it's very possible. They said it's a brand new technology that has to be wrapped around, but they are able to borrow pieces from different analyzation softwares, measuring softwares, and I have a team of 8. We started this almost a year ago. Then I personally funded this completely out of my pocket for almost a year now, and with 8 people, developers are not cheap, and every step along the way, it's another hurdle. It was another hurdle. It's another hurdle. But we were able to pull it off, and we're going to try to get to the point to where we can show people exactly how it works without giving away too much, because it was a lot of trial and error in the beginning by the image processing. When you scan a card, you get a lot of different problems with it. One, you're not getting the right clarity. So we had to send off these scanners that we bought, these real high-end scanners. You had to get them to where we are scanning them at 4800 DPI. Then, once you're scanning high images, high resolution like that, you get little shadows off the card. Well, when you're trying to analyze and capture the data of the card and the visualization of the card, you get a shadow and it wants to pick that up. So then we had to remove the shadow. It's been every step along the way. It's been one thing after another. But
so now we have the imaging. We got all kinds of great stuff. Tyler, you're running a mile a minute, and this is why I love you. And I have one question for you.
Yeah.
If all you had to get signed was a samurai sword, and you ran into Randy Jackson on the street, you'd get him to sign the samurai sword, right?
Absolutely.
All right, this is it. So we're best friends. We're gonna go do karate in the garage, me and this guy. So I love it. We're kindred spirits here. So
absolutely.
So what Andrew asked about. So we know where to find you, and obviously, I mean, you've put some time, some money, some resources into this, and there are a million great things. And Andrew's first question. So we'll get into the grading right after this, right? So I do want to talk to you about the computers, the imaging, because it sounds like you're doing something a year into this that a company like PSA, for example, has been talking about doing, but didn't actually do. So I do want to get into that. But first and foremost, let's talk about how scaling, right? Because my co-host here, he's a big systems and scaling and process guy. And I'm like, just go. Let's run against the wall. And if I'm big enough, I'll get through the wall. He's right. Like, no, we're going to figure out a way with the bricks and we'll you don't have to run through the wall, moron. There's a better way of doing it, right? So we have that conversation all the time. And I can tell you, there are companies who start up and they get so big, so fast that they can't do it, right? There are, in the card space itself, we promise a 48-hour turnaround. And then the next thing you know, they have so much volume that 48-hour turnaround becomes 6 to 8 weeks. And then all of a sudden, all of that momentum they built up, all of that positive energy, is gone. And in our world, in what we do, you don't get that back. You lose that momentum. It's done, and it's done for good. Someone's moving on to something else. So it sounds like what you're saying, this was Andrew's question here, that you're actually limiting the amount of stuff you'll take in. This way you can guarantee that you're getting that stuff out there. And then if you see more come in, more demand, then you're going to increase your systems, your process, and your ability to take in more the following week. Is that about right?
That's correct. Right now we started off with 800 a week. We've done a lot of sample grades. I've got thousands of thousands. So when we were setting up the system, setting up our assembly line and graders, we can do around 1,600 to 2,000 a week. We set our limit at 800 because we want to make sure in the beginning, one, to provide the best customer service and to get everybody's cards back before their deadline. Reception is everything. If I'm getting your cards back in 7 or 8 days on a 10-day or 20 days on a 30-day, you're going to be much happier. You're going to be like, wait a second, this is different. And we want to provide a different experience. Customer service is my number one priority. And we're always going to continue to grow, but we're going to steadily grow instead of just, hey, everybody send us your cars, we'll get it back to you when we can. That's what happens to companies who become greedy. I'm not greedy. I have money. I don't need the money. I'm doing it because I saw an issue, I didn't like it, and there was no other options. I've tried, PSA, BGS, SGC came out, and they had, they entered the new modern market. And so I tried them, did a 20-day submission with them, got it back 146 days later. I won't ever be that company. I refuse. I will grow with what we can handle. I have a whole team here, my board of directors, everybody. We will only grow as we can handle the volume.
I love it. So what I'm curious about, Tyler, and I could attest. One of the things Tyler said that customer service is their number one priority. So I called that number on their website, and within 30 minutes, I got a call back. So I could mimic that. And Cage has been in this hobby for a long time, and he's a PSA guy. But for me, I'm someone that wants a grading company that cares about me as the customer.
Right.
And I think everyone listening does too. At the same time, they're pretty skeptical, right? We have this hobby where it's like, it's always been PSA, always been BGS. They're skeptical. The reason why we're bringing you on today is I want people to understand that there are new businesses coming into the hobby every day. And that
Right.
with new information, new insights, new perspectives, I'm just trying to bring a little bit of value so that people can learn and make the decision for themselves. So I'm a little curious, and we'll get into the artificial intelligence. I love betting on multiple serial entrepreneurs who've had success.
Mm-hmm.
This business is no accident from what I've seen. It sounds like you run successful businesses time and time again.
Yep.
Would you be able to share, in like 2-3 minutes, your background? I think it will give a lot of people a little peace of mind knowing your reputation and what you stand for.
Right. First off, I started my first business 12 years ago in the vacation industry. I ran a sales team. We sold travel clubs. Very successful. From there, I went into a title company, and I've had that for 8 years, and we're one of the largest title companies in the real estate development field. So anytime anybody's looking to get out of their timeshare or want to transfer the deed or title ownership, they work with us. It's a multi-million-dollar company. I've been running it. I started it 8 years ago, almost 7.5 years now. You can find us on the BBB A+ rating. I take care of everybody there as well. But we grew there. We started, real small, started working with a couple local resorts, and now we work in, I think, 7 or 8 countries through there. So I always take models and I slowly grow them. I don't try to go be first tomorrow. That's not my goal. My goal was to, as a snowball effect, continually pick up steam, pick up steam, pick up steam. This has picked up a lot of steam way faster than I would have imagined. We spent $0 on marketing or anything. My goal was I know enough people in the hobby. I've been in enough breaks. I know enough people were frustrated with PSA and BGS, and I'm like, listen, I'll start, small trial. But when word got out and people started using us, seeing our slabs and stuff, it's just been a much faster snowball effect. It's just going down a real steep hill. So picking up a lot of snow real fast.
Cage, I don't know if you're curious. I'm
It's
curious.
good. If you build a snowman, the bigger the better. So, good for you.
Absolutely. But
nobody likes a little snowman.
Nobody.
What's curious, Cage? I'm thinking this is going to surprise you. Their resale value, just a few weeks in, it has been higher than PSA 9s.
Oh, it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me. Really. So, I will talk about the tech in a second, but I would imagine that right now, our audience, the thousands of people in Luka Nation, are intrigued, is the word that they're probably, at this point in our episode as they're listening, but concerned. Right. And obviously one concern is alleviated by the fact that you're not a 12-year-old in the basement, with a laminating machine, putting their cards there.
How are you going to put Ian's card network on blast like that?
Yeah, exactly. So, my son wants to be a grading company, he's called Ian's Authentication Network. It's IAN. It's his initials. And people were like, hell, we'll send you cards and they would have, because people are just really so thirsty for an alternative. Right. But that said, that only gets you so far. Your reputation can only be, your business can only be built on the other guys are bad for so long. You have to actually be good.
Absolutely.
But I'll tell you, the biggest concern they have beyond is this a fly-by-night operation, which you've alleviated that concern, is long-term sustainability and resale value, right? So that is going to
Right.
be, if I were an interviewer, right, which, hey, I guess I am, my question for you from the audience would be, what would you say to somebody who's sitting there with their cards right now, and everything you said sounds good, right? They got 10 cards, they're going to send them to PSA and spend the money and get them back in a year if they're lucky, but they
Right.
know already what that, what the resale value is, what the market's going to be. They know that that's an accepted slab, let's call it, in the industry. And who knows
Right.
what yours is going to be. You're going to get back to them definitely this month, but who knows about resale value on it? What do you tell people like that? What's your answer to somebody like that who's hesitant
Pretty
to
much.
send you cards?
There's a couple of different answers, I give.
Mhm.
Just depending on what kind of message they can bring to me. But perception. If you believe in the technology, you believe in my company, you believe in the growth that we're eventually going to catch, or be on par with them with the amount of resale. Um, the other cool thing about us is, since we're growing at a slow, sustainable pace, our slabs will not be flooding the market. So if you wanted, for example, a Drew lock, if you wanted a Drew lock because it looks cool, it'll look great with your PC, you enjoy the labels. They're not going to be flooded the market. So if you're following us and you want that card and you're like, all right, I really want one that's graded already, you're going to have very limited choices. So because we are smaller right now, you're going to have limited choices, and that usually, limited supply versus demand. If our demand is outgoing our supply, then you're going to pay more for it. We're not cheapening our product. That's another thing. A lot of people are like, if you do it for $10, I'll buy into it. It's not a $10 product. Everything that we have, our cases are made here in the U.S. They're made right here in Tennessee. I work with an injection molding company out of Tennessee, and everything I do is made here in the U.S. We don't send anything overseas. I'm all about, trying to provide business and money for locals. My cost on these is way more than probably what these other companies have, because they go overseas and get them made cheaper. I have that option. I'm not going to. I pay substantially more for them to be made here locally because I want to support other small businesses. So I think it's just going to be a supply and demand issue here in the beginning. If people want one of these cards like that Zion that sold for more than PSA, if they want it, it's the only one out there right now. You want it slab, you want it that one, you have to pay up for it, because there's going to be 10 others that really want it. Versus, if you want the PSA one, there's going to be 5 or 10 out there. There's only one of mine right now. So it's just supply versus demand here in the beginning. As more people start following, it'll just be perception. I mean, if you believe the 9.5 of ours is not worth a BGS 9.5, you won't pay it. If you believe the technology behind it, then you'll pay more.
I like it. So, I mean, can we talk about that technology a little, Andrew?
I would love to. I am intrigued. I like you, Tyler. We've never had a guest like Tyler on. He's got a special kind of energy from the Midwest. I love that you're keeping business in the U.S., and I think a lot of our Luka Nation is passionate about that, especially given a lot of the things that have gone on in the last year or so with small businesses. Yeah. I'd love to learn about the technology. I would.
Okay. I can try to tell you as much as I can. A lot of it are words that I don't even understand that my developers shoot to me, and I have to sit here and look up word after word. And I told him to actually write a synopsis of how each section is done. And I'm like, okay, I don't know if this is too much information to reveal or not. And he's like, what do you mean? I literally, we had to Google it.
Proprietary, man.
6 sentences. It was like 30 words we had to Google. I'm like, what does these even mean?
Well, Steve Jobs couldn't necessarily build the Macintosh, right? He understood how it worked, and he was able to brand it, market it, and put together the pieces for it.
And that's kind of what I am. I'm the spokesperson for us right now. So the way it works is, that's what I was kind of going through earlier with the scanners, is we increase the dots per inch, the DPI of the scan, to try to get just better, clearer scans. We know we ran into a multitude of issues. The quickest way that we were able to fix it is by turning the cards not into an image, but turning them into a frequency. So in order to get the surface and because a lot of people were talking about, like, you can't see surface blemishes. You sure can. But in order to do that, you have to revert it to, I forget the scale he uses, a Gaber maybe, or something like that. But he turns it into to a frequency. So it literally, the colors become a frequency all throughout the card. And that way you can pick up the change in frequency in throughout the middle of a card that is not consistent with a gradual decline or increase. Way over my pay scale. But I mean, it's very in-depth on how it works. So the surface is not an issue, which a lot of people, that was our hardest task of overcoming. It was the surface. Edges, corners, they can be measured pretty quickly once we were able to alleviate the shadowing that we were facing. Once that was done, all you're doing is you're creating measurements off the card. It scans, measures, gives you exact measurements, so we can also identify cut cards. But it measures them, and then once you actually get the straight measurement down, it gives you a straight line. It gives you your measurement of your card, and it shoots us off errors. So a lot of people are like, "Well, what's your scale and like your edges?" It's computer generated right now, so it's kind of hard for people to understand. If I'm like, "Oh, okay, if it's 0.103 errors, that's good." People might be like, "Well, that's bad." 0.103 is literally one little tiny nick on the corner of the card that you can't see with your eye, to your naked eye. So that's what we've had to do. We've had to scan PSA, 9s, 10s, trying to get baselines of what their models would be scaled, or what their 10 is graded in ours. And that's where we come up with our scaling from. But we've not yet been able to take our scale from a computer algorithm parameter and put it into a usable scaling for people to be able to understand. So that's what they're working on now. We have them trying to figure out the best way to analyze and help people understand, I guess, like, because people want to know what defines that 9.5 grade. We got our parameters. Well, it's either 0.103 to 0.167, but that doesn't tell you what the errors mean. So that's something we're working on now, trying to pull out the actual data to make it more understandable to the general public.
Sounds like you throw a shoe and some butterscotch and sugar in there, and out pops the everlasting gobstopper. And I don't need to know what goes into it, right? I mean,
Right.
you got Willy Wonka's factory going on in the background, but you have a scale, and it sounds like you're taking a lot of the human element out of it.
Yeah.
And you're running it through, you're scanning it through, and if it falls in this range of error,
Yep.
this is the grade, this is the
Yep.
subgrade, this is where you're going. So, I mean, I really do like it. Some concerns. Someone's going to hear this from PSA and watch you for the next month or two, and you got enough traction where you're starting to actually get out there and do your stuff. Somebody calls you up and says, hey, here's how much money it's going to take to buy you. You're going to tell them no, right?
Absolutely. Everybody who knows me knows I'm the most generous person. I mean, I give everything away. I help everybody. I've been approached at my CPA, my CFO. Everybody's like, sooner or later there's going to be buyouts. Somebody offered you 20 million right now. Absolutely no. 100 million. It's not even for sale. Like, it will never be for sale.
That's the answer, by the way, because
yeah.
people need to know that their slab is not going away.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're not going to be.
My issue is I have a vision for the company, and nobody else will do the vision like I'll do the vision. I want to take care of people. These companies don't. They're in it to make money. They're in it to be profitable. They have stockholders. They have to actually do profit sharing. I'm private. I don't care about that. I care about changing for the better and giving a better option for the card collecting industry.
That's why we love you, man. That's why we need more guests like this. So people have approached us to buy our podcast already, and Andrew tells them no, because no one's going to do it the way we do. Exactly. And I'm not in it for the money. I'm in it to provide value for people. It's a long-term thing, and no one's ever going to do it the way that we do it. So I love it.
If you had to,
and by the way, guys,
it's not the same without you.
If you're listening to this, right, that's the answer you want to hear from a company like this that's starting out and is going to look to take on the bigger guys and not fold to them, right? And I'm going to send you cards after this. I'll tell you myself, I'm going to send you some cards if I can fit in your 800. You might tell me no, you can't even take it, but I'm definitely going to send you some cards because that's the biggest concern. The biggest concern is market share. The biggest concern is whether or not this is going to be something that over the next 6 months, year, 2 years is going to hold value. And if people think you're just fly by night, you'll either fail, or if you succeed, someone's just going to eat you up anyway. One of the big guys is going to take you out. Then either way, there's no sustainability to your slab. But hearing that that's your response to that, it provides a lot more confidence to someone like me, and hopefully to our listeners, in trying out.
Right. I could tell you from my perspective, I think there's room for a third company. And I thought that company was going to be SGC. So not all cards that I submit are ones that I want to resell. They're cards that perhaps I want to keep in my collection, but I don't want them to lose value in a different slab. So I gave SGC a try. And just like you, Tyler, it took about 140 days to get back a 20-day when their reps told me just 4 months ago that, customer service is our priority. We're ahead of deadlines. It's right around that 20-day mark. And that's really disenchanting. Like, there should be a player where it's we're new to the market, but we're consistent. We're going to churn out results in a timely fashion, like our website and our marketing says.
Right.
So I'm really, really excited for you and your future. I hope we get to connect again. Hybrid grading, I don't think we touched on this, though. Maybe we'll wrap with this. There is a human review at the end, right?
Absolutely. So because it is newer, and I tried to explain to somebody yesterday, they said if computers are so accurate, then why do you have people checking it, graders checking it behind? I was like, okay, same thing as in power plants or factories. You still have the machines making it, but you still have quality assurance go behind and just make sure the machines are still being accurate. We have our developers are in there every day making sure that the errors and everything are still smooth, but we still have experienced graders that we have hired from other companies that work for us now. And they go behind and they actually just double check to make sure that what they're seeing is exactly what the computer's seeing. Just
Listen, machines are only as good. They have to be double checked. Imagine somebody did it with the voting machines. I mean, machines they're not perfect. I mean,
right. And
slabs, voting booths doesn't.
As consistent as they are, you still, I mean, just like factories making motors and stuff and all the little pieces, you still go behind and check it. And I'm just like, people who literally like, oh, so you don't really have AI if you got graders double check. I'm like, no, we do. I'm like, that gives the initial grade. We just go through and make sure that it's fine and that it's accurate and it's spitting out the consistent grading that we're expecting. And people, I mean, it'll take a while to catch on. I think people think that we're taking away a step or taking away positions. No, we added positions. We have somebody that literally wipes down your cards, make sure they're print free before they get scanned, so that nothing shows up. It doesn't pick up like oils and stuff because the oil isn't actually scannable. Your oil just like changes. It'll increase the frequency, but it's still a smooth frequency, so it doesn't show any change in the Gabor scale or whatever. But we actually increase the positions also. So we have 2 more positions throughout the steps that we go through versus like PSA or BGS or SGC.
I love that you're a straightforward guy. I'm surprised people would question it given the name of your company is called Hybrid Grading.
Right.
So combination of AI and human. So it's
right.
I think it's fascinating. I wish you all the success. I hope Luka Nation gives you guys a try and maybe puts Luka Nation in the little note. Do you want to touch on Cage? I don't know if you have any other questions, but maybe
the last question I have for him is when you ramp up enough that you want a group subber, we hope you consider us as one of your first group subbers because we do group subs.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. We've had it's amazing to see the response, and I respond to everybody I'm up working from 6 a.m. till 1 a.m. right now. But I've had people from, I think we're at 14 different countries right now that are trying to use us for group subs. I mean, and they're sharing their horror stories with, I had a guy send me yesterday, he put a 2-day in March with one of the companies and still hasn't got it back from Indonesia. And I was like, man, I was like, it's rough. And, I feel bad for all the markets. Our goal is once we get growing here, I would like to open an international location or 2 in different places in Europe and Asia, to give them a much better, easier access instead of trying to ship them all the way to here, wait on our turnaround times and ship back. So we're looking to expand globally as well as here just in this market because our sports are growing. The card industry is growing worldwide.
What do you see for the hobby the next 5 years? And we'll wrap with this.
I think it's just going to continue to grow. I think it's been brought back to the limelight. The short prints of cards, all the new, as much as I'd hate the quality control at Panini, they've done a great job on changing up variations and just making more attractive looking cards. And I think, with everybody's falling behind and all these big investors coming in, I think there's nothing but growth potential for the market.
Love it, brother. Cage, any final words?
No, I'm excited. I mean, listen, it's funny because you think you're going to bring in somebody else in another grading company who hates PSA and just wants to take on the world and watch the establishment burn. But it's not that. I mean, there's room for everybody. But Absolutely. I love the website. 10 days means 10 days, and you're doing it the right way, right? You're not getting greedy. Obviously, people are interested in what you're doing. As long as you stick to that, I think you're going to be fine. And I mean, if there's anything we can do to help, obviously this is going to get out to a lot of ears and eyes. We'll post about it. Let us know. But it's just to Luka Nation. You can't see Tyler. I mean, we'll try to get a video of him. But I mean, this is a trustworthy guy, right? This looks like a guy who he puts his pants on one leg at a time and is really looking to help the hobby out here. Because he's one of us, right? It's somebody who was doing this himself and wanted nothing more than the grading process the way that it was to work.
Right.
And it didn't. And, I guess he had the resources to try to do something about it. So we need more of that. So thank you, Tyler. We appreciate it.
You.
We hope to support you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for spending some time with us on another episode of the Luka's, Tigers, and Bronze Oh My podcast. Do us a favor and like, subscribe. You know what? Don't just like and subscribe. Everybody does that. If you like us, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your enemies, tell everybody. And we hope you got something from spending some time with us today, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.